Hi, I'm Jesse Adler, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing the Tenderfoot Requirement 3D, which is demonstrate your knowledge of the proper care, storage, and use of the knife, saw, and axe. And that is why I have all this out here today. So first, let's start with the knife, because this is probably the most common one that you'll use. So I have two different kinds of knives here. I have a sheath knife, and I have my pocket knife. So the sheath knife, and first, I'm not really going to go into knife safety because I covered that all in my Scout Rank Requirement 5 video, so go watch that one for knife safety because that is also part of this requirement. So I have my blood circle. No one's in the area. I'm going to open it up, set it down. I also have my pocket knife. Oh, and stay tuned for the end of the video because I will talk a little bit about good techniques when using them as well. That doesn't really pertain to the requirement. So, first I'll start with the, sheath knife. So I'll put this pocket knife away so I'm safe. So, sheath knives, there's actually some more uses. So, you probably have heard of whittling, which is like whittling on something. You wouldn't really want to use a sheath knife of this size for that. Something more small, or even like a whittling knife. They make pocket knives for that. I don't have one. But then next, probably the greatest use you'll find for a knife on an outing is making tinder for a fire. So you're going to want to have a straight arm and just move your body down. And I don't know if you can see from that far away, but I'm making these nice curls. And not too thick. You can even go on your knees. And just like kind of have it glide over the knife. Find a sharp corner of the wood to do this. And it does take some skill and practice, so you might want to try it at your own home if your parents or guardians are okay with that. So the next thing that you can do with only a sheath knife, please do not do this with a folding knife because it's going to wreck your knife. It can hurt you really bad. So you can do something called batoning, which is where you set your knife on here and you hit it with another piece of wood or a baton and it goes through. So I'm going to grab a baton right now and I'll show you how that works. So here's my baton. It's just this old piece of wood. And I'm going to put my knife on here. Do it with your if you're right-handed, do it with your left hand. So, if you're left-handed, do it with your right hand. So then you're just going to start hitting the knife. Ooh, this wood is hard. Man. I'm getting a little groove in there. Ooh, there we go. So there we go. So it's a lot more easier to do, I think, than using an axe because you miss a lot on the axe and it's a lot harder. But definitely not so good for such hard woods. That was pretty hard. There was also a knot right on the top. So that brings us to our next one, which is axes. So proper use of an axe. So I have two kinds of axes right here. I have a splitting axe, and I have a normal chopping axe. And I'll open them both up. But before I do, this only pertains to axes. You're going to want to do your normal safety circle around you. Make sure no one's near you. And then you also want to go up. Because if you're swinging your axe, even if there's no one above you, you still can hit like a branch and then the axe can fall on you. And a lot of things can happen that are bad. So once no one's in your safety circle, then I'll open them up. And you can see they have a different design. This one is a bit thicker and it splits the wood apart. This one is for chopping on the side. And I'll show you using both. And you might be able to see the difference. So I'm going to start with this big piece. So let's say I wasn't able to baton it with the knife, and I need to use the axe. So I'm actually going to go from this side so you can see better. And with a 3/4 size axe, this one's kind of an odd size. It's not a full axe, because with a full axe you stand up. But with this one, if you stand up, you can hit your legs. So you usually kind of kneel. Now I'm smaller, so I'm going to stand up, but I'm going to spread my legs wide so that if I miss, I don't hit my leg. And then you're going to hold the axe like this and slide your arm down as you hit the wood. And that missed. Just gently pull it out. Almost. You can see I got some of the wood splitting off. There we go. And you can actually go back to your baton and hit it. Now it doesn't look like that one's far enough to do anything. I'm gonna hitting the wood on the ground doesn't do anything. Carefully take it out from the wood. Let's try to hit it again. Same spot. Nope. But really, it's requiring like no effort from me. The axe weight is just going right into it. Actually. Now, part of the problem is this baton isn't very easy to hold. So if you can get a nice piece of wood that's like rounded, that's a lot better. And I got my piece off. There it is. So then once you want to chop this, you're going to go to the other axe, if you happen to have both like I do. So here's the other axe. It's actually a little lighter, less weight in it. And you're going to hit it like this on the ground rather than upright because it's not going to stand up. And I got it right there. And then you can just use your other stick. Pound it right through. Now, let's say this wood didn't stand up well, like it was falling over and I couldn't get a good hit. You do not want to hold it with your hand, okay? Because you're just going to chop on your hand. So what you're going to want to do is use a chicken stick. And you're going to hold it and go like that. But this piece of wood has a pretty flat bottom, so that's okay. Put that back there. Finally, we come to saws. So here's just a wood saw that I had in my garage. So I don't want to saw through all of that. I'm just going to saw through this. Actually, not this. So, yeah, make sure no one's near you, but there's not really like a safety circle thing. Sometimes with saws and axes, you have a special area roped off where no one goes in, because it's a little more dangerous than a knife. So you're going to want to start sawing. Maybe even hold it with your foot. Once you get it started, it keeps going pretty well. And I don't want to bore you by sawing all the way through, but you can see how that works. It saws pretty well. Okay, let's move on to care for them. So for knives, after every time I use it, like this time, I'm going to go and put mineral oil on it with like a cloth. And this is because my knives are made of carbon steel. So it's not stainless steel, so it will rust. Now, a lot of knives nowadays are made of stainless steel, which isn't actually as good of a metal, but it's not going to rust, so that's not a big problem. But you can still put oil on it. Now, if you're going to use your knife for more cooking aspects, olive oil works as well. That's a little better for cooking. And then for the axe, it's the same deal. You're going to want to put the oil on it every time after you use it so that it doesn't rust. Because when they rust, it really doesn't look good. And with the saw, I don't know if I've ever seen a saw that isn't made out of stainless steel, so I don't think you're going to have a big problem there. But this one has rusted a bit, I think because it's wiped out some of the outer layer. But, I don't know. I don't oil mine. Then, Now, I don't have a sharpening block out here, but there's two different kinds. There's a wet block and a dry block. So the wet block you're going to want to put oil on, and the dry block you just do it dry. So, as you can kind of presume, dry blocks are a little better for bringing with you on an outing. But if you look at your knife blade, I'll bring mine up close to the camera, you can see it only has what's called one bevel. So there's only one blade. Now on most knives, they have what's called a secondary bevel. So there's the first one, and then there's a tiny, tiny little one at the edge. But you're going to want to sharpen it to the bevel. So mine, I just sharpen it right at that angle, and I go along, and I go through the knife, sharpening it all. And I do the same amount of one on either side. So that's how you sharpen a knife. With an axe, it's the same exact thing. Normally, I think all axes have a secondary bevel. So you're just going to want to sharpen at that angle. Exact same thing. Now, saws, this may be a surprise to you, but you can't sharpen saws. You can get replacement blades. Some special saws you can sharpen, probably not ones you'll come across. But yeah, you don't sharpen saws. You just use them until they wear out, and then you get a new blade. So yeah, that is the requirement. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, thanks for watching.